together myself a little. I'm very verklempt. You may have these. You know, get it together. Some of you I've known since 1993 when I first came here. It's such a lovely compliment that you're here today. I needed this. I'm having a little bit of a... have you ever had a personal workshop and you were the only one there? Well, I've been doing it for 5 years since I left here. I'm just going to say one thing about the band. You know, on Facebook, Dr. Pett is always complimenting you guys and always saying how much she loves her band. I want to be clear, that's my band. The best in the business, let me tell you. So, you know, I thought I was retiring. It turned out you have to be rich to retire. And, you know, sometimes you do things intuitively that you think you're doing one thing, but you're really doing something else. And I've kind of been that way my whole life. I kind of follow my intuition, and things tend to work out. But in this last little while, nothing's worked for me. No, it's okay. Apparently I didn't want it to. It's kind of like one door slamming after the other when I tried to redo ministry. And consequently, kind of been in the dark. Some people came to me in Mesilla. I live in this little town called Mesilla in southern New Mexico, and it's a long story how I got there, and kind of boring, so we won't go into that, but they wanted me to start a center there, so I did. It's a tiny town. I mean, I should have known. Most people there are Catholic, or they're over it. We've had it a year, and it's tiny. Last week we had 8 people. I was so excited I didn't know what to grab first. But what I've realized is, partly since I've been here, you know, it's something when you connect with your past, sometimes it makes you realize things that you didn't get. And I realized I've had this wonderful opportunity to be alone a lot in Mesilla. I have a lovely apartment, but I'm alone a lot. I have a TV show, do an article for the newspaper, but I spend whole days by myself. And I have time to meditate. It's been a time of introspection, where I really realized a lot of my personality quirks and flaws that didn't serve me so well. And I asked Amy to sing that song, Rolling River God, because I love it so much, but it's that last line about being smooth. You can't do it unless you go into the dark. And that doesn't mean a negative space. It's like a gestation. You know, when you think about the gestation period of any living thing, whether it's a fetus in the womb, an oak tree and an acorn, a daffodil in a bulb, or an idea in the mind, we see that everything comes from the dark. And the light is time and space. But to come into the time and space field of form and experience, you come out of the dark. And the dark, and this may be the point of today's talk, the dark is the only place transformation takes place. That's where it happens. That's where the fetus becomes the baby. That's where the oak tree starts to push out. That's where the chicken comes out of the egg. It all begins there, and it is the transformational place. Thich Nhat Hanh, you all know who he is, wonderful Buddhist monk, said, going within is taking refuge. And he said it's a way of becoming reborn. Now in our teaching we would say it's a way of reframing deeply our self-identity. Because self-identity is everything. Everything is how we see ourselves. And that's what we project onto the passing scene and everybody in our life. But so to take the attention away from light, away from the field of form and experience, into the darkness, into no time, no space, is to expect a change. And there's no other reason to do it. You know, there's no other reason to meditate every day unless you expect some transformation, right? And there's no other reason to look at your issues, re-examine your motives, unless you expect change. And it happens within us. It doesn't happen out there. It happens right where we are, all the time. So, we're not unlike a caterpillar who emerges from the cocoon with wings and becomes a different kind of being with the same core, emerges out of the dark. So before we entered the world, we experienced that darkness. Everyone in this room experienced the miracle of their own birth. And look at us. We emerge and we begin to grow and we begin to start reaching for our own potential from within. And then, maybe like me, you hit a spot where you realize you need to rethink yourself a little bit. Maybe your potential's different. Maybe it's greater. Maybe you haven't tapped in yet to what you really could be. Maybe it's all been training up till now. You ever think that? That your life has been preparation for now? You know, as an aside, that's the other thing that I've been experiencing in my life is, and I used to talk about this all the time, but to actually experience it is being so present in the moment. You know, and it's just like this moment, there's nothing wrong. In this now moment, there is nothing but being, and nothing but wholeness. And there's no sickness, and there's no lack. There's just perfection. So if we can stay in those moments and use the techniques we have to do it, we find ourselves being more present ourselves, being more aware of how we are in the world and how we want to be. So once we're here, though, once we get pushed out into the light, the adult human being has to enter into the darkness at will. It's something we have to decide to do. And it's kind of a powerful command to ourselves. It's a way of saying, now I will retreat. Now I will enter the transformation place. Now I will let go for the moment of the light, and the experience, and the form. And I will simply be. And I expect something to happen because of that. So if we never do it, now here's the fun part. And I know you know this. If we never seek our own inner self, or let's call it the darkness today, it will creep up on you. It will assert itself. And you will experience it as things like even depression, anger that's not appropriate to the situation, emotions that have no real use. It begins to reveal itself, and it's like a call from the whole self saying, come on, come in, come in, come in. Let go of this for a while. See who you really are. The darkness calls us. I'm staying with my dear friend Barbara Guthrie, and on her coffee table she had a book by Marianne Williamson that I just picked up last night. And, you know, opened it to any page, and she had a whole section on the darkness. I thought, well, isn't that it's perfect? And she talks about how, when we get older especially, but it can happen at any age, but her point was midlife. I'm sort of beyond mid, but okay. You never know, though, huh? how the darkness creeps up, and what it creeps up as are regrets, guilt. I've had some of that. I've had some regrets about things I did and things I didn't do and coulda, shoulda, oughta done. But you can't ignore them if you want that transformation. If you want to let it go. If you want to feel who you really are without all that stuff added on. You can't just keep shoving it down. You know that? Isn't that true? You can't suppress. You cannot suppress. It doesn't work. And it's quite liberating to look at it. So, it's a cry from within. And there's no reason to go there unless we expect to be wiser, happier, more energized, or even healthier. So when we're worried and afraid, after being reborn, as it were, we're more cheerfully expectant. And that's kind of all life requires of us, is that we're cheerfully expectant of a greater good all the time. That what I've created expands and grows. As long as I'm present, as long as I'm authentic, as long as I'm not afraid to look at my flaws, as long as I'm willing to be really here and now and giving everything I know myself to be, it's bound to expand and grow, right? It's bound to become something more of itself. So our experience of life is so completely internal. It's like the cosmic joke. You know, it's all in here and it's all projected out. Plato said this: "Two things alone cannot be satisfactorily united without a third. For there must be some bond between them, drawing them together." Now, I'm relating that quote today to the light and the dark. What is the bond between the outer and the inner? If not God, if not Spirit, if not that presence out of which everything arose. That's what we contact when we're inside of ourselves, whether we know it or not. Whether we feel it as a big experience or nothing. We are in the presence when we go within, and it brings us together. And it's the same thing, you know, you talk about spiritual mind treatment. When you have an idea, it has to be centered between the inner and the outer for it to grow. In other words, we hold the idea as if it were a fetus, as if it were an oak tree and an acorn, knowing it must emerge into the light as we love it, nurture it, and support it, because it's already real. That's the basis of our spiritual mind treatment, is to recognize that that which we're seeking is seeking us, and is seeking outlet by means of us. That's where I really wanted to go. That which we are seeking is trying to come out. It's trying to be seen and known in the field, in the light, so that it can have that experience. So, you know, most of us go out into the world seeking to be validated or loved or understood, and we get caught up in that. But if we will shift our attention a little bit and give ourselves the opportunity to rethink who we are, our self-identity, we will move from being a victim, if you will, to being a co-creator. And that's what I've been working on in the past little while, is really letting go of everything that's been. There's been some highs, and there's been some lows, like everybody's life. But to let it go and say, well, what's for me now? What is the call now? What is this beautiful being inside wanting to do? And it has nothing to do with anyone else. You know, if there's one lesson I've really learned from being a minister, and you've probably learned it if you're the authority figure in your work, or you're the head of the family, or whatever, is that no one sees you clearly. They project onto you what they long for or what they don't like in themselves. You're either a saint or a sinner. There's no in between, usually. Some days you're a saint, some days you're not. But a healthy mind is not removed from other people. We don't avoid other people because of that, but they're not dependent on them. A healthy mind is not dependent on anything outside of themselves for love and self-respect, or love and respect. It comes from us. Nobody can give it to us. They just cannot. And we can't give it to anyone else. So those self-love and self-respect are generated from the innermost self, not the ego, from the innermost self. I can't ever get away from the Christian scripture that said, let there be light. That those were God's words that allowed the universe to erupt into the scene. Let there be light. And only in the light, which is time and space, can the content of the darkness be seen. So this is my way of saying, the only way God can be known is through us, is to come through into the field of time and space, into the field of experience and form, into the known and the seen. Otherwise it remains potential. And that's the same thing with us in our personal life. If we do not allow this whole self to come through, we will simply be living the law of averages. We will be living without ever tapping into our true potential. And our true potential can get hidden behind ego things, personality quirks and traits, or resentments, or holding on to old things that don't belong with us anymore. You know, one of my favorite little affirmations is, that which belongs with me cannot be kept from me. And that which does not belong with me goes away. I release it. So the darkness is potential. And it's a way for, it's like when God said, let there be light, God meaning consciousness. We know God's not a man in the sky. But to talk about it, we use that word. It's like she said, let there be a way for the beauty of the soul to be revealed. And the soul is you and me and all sentient life. And the universe is the playground of the soul. So it doesn't always seem like a playground, does it? And it is in the sense that it is a boundless possibility. But if we get so mired in the doings and not spent time in the being, trouble ensues. You can see it in our world right now. There is an enormous imbalance. It's due to the lack of the feminine. The feminine aspect of our nature that's in every man and every woman has been almost completely dismissed, denied, and disrespected. Almost completely in the Western world. In fact, all over the world. And a lot of great spiritual teachers now are coming to start teaching this, that one particular thing. That if we do not value the feminine perspective in our policy making, in our decision making, in our families, we will be lopsided. We will be in a great state of imbalance. And that's what we're seeing in the world right now. A world out of balance. Buono-Scazzi. Recently the great act of violence in Las Vegas, people started asking, what is the meaning of that? And there isn't any meaning. But there's no meaning to anything except what we ascribe to it. But there is always cause. And the cause of violence is imbalance, is a lack of respect for the feminine. It's rampant, unchecked masculinity. And it's up to us, those of us in this kind of teaching, we're conscious people. It's our Our job, our gift to the world is to get ourselves in balance with that, and so that we respect all of our nature, both aspects of our nature. Both are extremely important. One can't live without the other. You see, the masculine and the feminine create the third thing that Plato talked about. Wholeness. They create an awareness of wholeness. Everything we decide from that wholeness is inclusive, it's intelligent, it's loving, it's respectful of nature and all life. So it would be a very different world if our decisions were coming from that wholeness, don't you think?
Yes.
Extremely, extremely better. And Emerson wrote, he said, the height of the pinnacle is determined by the breadth of the base. And I'm talking about the base of beingness, the base of human life needs to be stable from the inside out. So it's like being a strong tree with deep roots. You know, it can survive all kinds of weather, but it's there, and it keeps producing. That's how our inner life ought to be for us. That we can withstand the changes that we create and that we see out there without being done in by them. You know, it's the old saying, be in the world but not of it. We can withstand what we see in the news, knowing there's a greater truth, and knowing we have an answer, and taking it within, making it our project. Not hoping for somebody else to come along and be the new leader of the country, but our project that we're giving to ourselves, re-identifying who we are. So, what is hidden, Emerson said, the height of the pinnacle is determined by the breadth of the base, and it is the height of the pinnacle, the breadth of the base is hidden. It's in the darkness, it's within, and it is guiding and directing us unless we have no awareness of it, and then what guides and directs us is our ego. The I want, I need, I gotta have self, which usually gets us into trouble, or creates a limited experience, that's for sure. So it can be fearful and grasping. I picked up Emerson's essays last night as well, and I love the Oversoul, the essay on the Oversoul. And this part was from page 191, 192, in case you want to look it up, see the whole thing. You know, I love Emerson. And speaking of this hidden power that guides and directs when we're in touch with it, he says, it pervades and contains us. So it's a way of saying that what the world calls God, or the originating power, this absolute beautiful intelligence and perfect love, is all pervasive. It's everywhere present, all of it, all the time, all at once, and we're in it. And we're breathing it, and breathing it out, and expressing it, and revealing it through our own life. And he says its true nature is sometimes seen by everyone, at least once in their life. We get glimpses of it, and it may be a glimpse of it in nature, or in a newborn baby, or when you're newly in love, you feel that sense of wholeness. But if any of those things change, and we haven't tapped into it within us, it becomes, again, elusive, and we go seeking it. So our life is really action and non-action. It's both. It's darkness and light. It's in and out. But only in the darkness can we perceive the being that we really are. You know, there's a wonderful ancient saying that I just love that describes what the inner experience can be like. I, the imperfect, adore my own perfect. It comes from the ancient Hinduism. I, the imperfect, the ego self, can observe my true self. I can. And adore it. Fall down and worship, if you will, that real self, that perfect self. So this is the subtle experience Emerson wrote about. It's subtle. It's a sense, it's a feeling, it's a dawning, it's a slow realization of the power that makes all things new. And it begins to infuse our time-space experience, that's all. We get a little smoother around the edges. We're a little happier, a lot healthier, more cheerfully expectant, and more available to the greater good that wants to happen by means of us. So we don't become some other being with spiritual practice. We're still very much human, and we'll have our flaws and our quirks. But we might notice that life looks different. People look a little more like us. You know, have you ever, you look in people's eyes and you can see the third thing? You can see the presence. The hardest one to see it in is ourselves. And that's why we need to go within on a regular basis. So it's very important in this changing world that we manage our mind and allow it to access heights of awareness that we haven't known before, and to see the bigger picture. Maybe see a more cosmic view of ourselves. As Rumi said, to get to the root of the self. So I invite you now to turn within and close your eyes with me for a minute. As we prepare just a few moments of recognition of why we're really here together. It is to know something. It is to become aware of something. It is to reinforce what we know. It is to expand what we know. It is to enliven our heart along with the mind, so that the third thing becomes apparent in the field of light, time and space. The third thing becomes love, joy, peace, and wisdom as we go to the roots of the self. Come to the root of yourself. Come to the root of the root. Come to the root of the root of yourself. Come to the root of the root. It is a call from within. Those feelings that frustrate us, that we wish we didn't have, that we know we need to get rid of, those are calls from the darkness. It says, come inside, sit, and be still and know I am, is God, is you. Come within. Come to the root of yourself. Come to the root of the root. Come to the root of the root of yourself. Come to the root of the root. Rumi said, there's a place beyond time and space where there's no wrongdoing, and I'll meet you there. He's speaking to himself and his relationship with this universal presence. I'll meet you there in that space, beyond form, beyond experience, behind all thought. There is something that's more real than anything we've ever known. And so this morning, my simple message to myself is trust. Trust this being that you are. She knows what she's doing. And be okay. You know, that's one thing that's everybody needs to know. I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm alive. I live in a spiritual universe. that has only one thing in mind for me, and that is to come through me as success, as beauty, as love, as art, music, relationships, literature, as everything we cherish. How else will it get here? Except by means of us. And so I'm just going to affirm for everybody here today that from this moment on, there is a natural deepening, a natural awakening, a natural becoming aware of the greater self, the true self, the happy, loving, joyful self that we all are, that we were before we were born, that was the miracle of our birth, the emergence of those qualities into time and space, into the light. Let there be light in our lives so that we might live at the top of it. So from this moment on, there is a shift, there is an awakening, there is no resistance. There's no accident why we're here today. We came here to know this about ourselves. I am spirit expressing. My life matters. All life matters. And so with great gratitude for this beautiful place, this wonderful teaching, each other, and all the saints and sages and all the traditions that have contributed to this moment where humanity is standing on the brink of the greatest awakening ever, we are grateful. And we take it personally, and we let it be. Come to the root of yourself. Come to the root of the root. Come to the root of yourself. Come to the root of the root. And so it is.